Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Soul Goals. I am Dawn, and today I have a remarkable young lady joining me on the podcast. Her name is McKenna Braegelmann, and McKenna hails from Washington State, correct? Initially? Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Other side of the country from Nashville, Tennessee, where I'm sitting in my home studio broadcasting. But McKenna is amazing because she is a Division I softball pitcher for the University of San Diego and currently a senior there.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct.
She's done her time. She's done her time in the box in college athletics. But she's just coming off of an injury. She was just telling me before we hit the record, and she is excited about getting back out there because you had to redshirt last year and you weren't able to play. So, yeah, when you talk about, I want to say this too. When you talked about that, and I watched a podcast. One of my peers has a podcast, Impact Sports. Shout out Nick Tolbert for that one. Yeah.
Yes.
And he was interviewing you, and I watched a piece of that interview, and there was different points of it that you talked about your sport that you were just glowing. And it was really nice to see that. And it was really refreshing because I think so many times, and you can attest to this probably too, we get caught up in our sport or our job kind of being our identity. And then we kind of miss what it's really all about. Yeah. But McKenna shares a really, really vulnerable story with everyone. And I'm excited to have her on today. When I saw that initial interview, I was immediately attracted to the fact that she's very mature, she's very vulnerable, and she has a story behind all of that and why she got to where she is. So I think that the platform that McKenna operates on is a mental health advocacy based on the story and the background where she came through. So without further ado, my new friend McKenna Braegelmann is here. Yeah, woo-hoo.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be able to speak with you today.
Oh, you're welcome. Tell me how the weather is in California.
Actually rainy right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was pouring down rain the entire night, but it's actually really refreshing. I kind of miss it
Yeah. Well, so Washington, you get rain. You get like season
all
stuff,
the
right?
time. Yep,
Oh, rain all the time.
rain all the time. It doesn't matter when.
So California, I always think I was talking to a girlfriend from LA yesterday, and she was like, "Oh, it kind of rained here a little bit yesterday." And I said, "Oh, that's unusual." So San Diego, we were there back in July. The weather was beautiful.
Oh, it's been gorgeous, except for this week. It's started to rain, but I've loved it, so I'm okay with it.
Good. Well, it's a nice diversion from all the regular stuff that you have, right?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So McKenna was a softball player, is a softball player from a very long time ago. When did you pick up a ball and decide I'm going to start playing softball?
Yeah, so my parents put me in T-ball when I was about 4 or 5 years old. My dad had played college baseball, and it was something that we just connected over.
Mhm.
He was also my coach growing up, so
Aw.
as coach's daughter, that's kinda how I started getting into pitching when I was about 10 years
Yes.
old.
Yeah. See that?
Yeah, so I was 10 years old, and it kind of took off from there. I kind of just fell in love with the game and didn't look back.
Yeah. So was pitching always your thing? Or did he say, let's learn everything?
Well, I'm left-handed, so that kind
Oh,
of
that's
that limits
great.
yeah, that limits the positions I can play, though. I always
Yeah.
wanted to be a shortstop when I was little. You can't be a left-handed shortstop, or it's very
Yeah.
rare.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so
So,
pitching it was.
yeah, so pitching it was, and I was really good at it at a young age, and that's what kind of started me in it, I
Yeah.
guess.
Did you know that you wanted to play at the next level? Or was that still kind of like when did that develop? Maybe I should ask you that.
Yeah, so growing up, I would watch the University of Washington softball team, and I'd watch, who's a mentor of mine now, Danielle Laurie, when she was in college. She's an Olympian. Her story is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
But I grew up watching her. I didn't
Mhm.
really know what college softball was until I was about 14 and that I could do it,
Okay.
until I had a coach saying that, "Hey, you're actually pretty good at this.
Okay.
Like, you could play in college." And I kinda stepped back and was like, "Oh, okay, this is something I could do."
Yeah.
So I was about 13, 14 years old when I realized that this was probably something I could t carry into college.
Well, that's pretty exciting. And to have somebody recognize that talent in you outside of outside of your dad, who's your coach, who obviously is invested in you because like you're his daughter and he's with you. And you said he was a college baseball player as well?
He was.
Where did he play?
He played He started out in Washington and then played a few years at Arizona State.
Okay. That
Yeah.
side of the country, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so it's in your blood, basically, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so at age 14 was a situation that happened that kind of started for if I'm following your story, is when all of this began, for you. You had an injury that you sustained at age 14, I would love for you to share a little bit more about what happened.
Yeah, of course. I was playing up in a tournament in Canada, and the only reason I say that is because the international rules are a little bit different.
Mm,
So we
mhm.
were playing, or I was pitching 3 feet closer than normal, and
Oh,
I
wait.
just,
Whoa.
yeah. So
That's a that's
it's
a
a good
big
difference.
difference.
It is, and so I had a little bit less reaction time, and I got hit by a line drive after a pitch to the side of my head,
Mhm.
and sustained a skull fracture and a brain bleed. All of it was extremely traumatic. I remember everything. I never lost consciousness. Was taken by ambulance to a hospital where I was diagnosed and ended up being okay after observation in 24 hours,
Yeah.
which was truly a blessing.
That's a miracle.
Yes.
Like, I that's all that I could attest it to. I just with and then being conscious and being able to hear and feel and know what was happening,
Yeah.
gosh.
It
So
was a
you
lot.
were observed, they released you,
Mhm.
and what happened after that? Like, that was within a day or 2 days?
It was within 2 days. Yeah, and so I kind of went back to my team and just kind of stuck around them for the rest of that tournament. However, s the, like, the communication between the doctors in Canada and the United States were
Mm.
kind of unclear, and
Mhm.
so me being stubborn and me being this, like, stubborn 14-year-old that I was, I wanted to keep playing, and
Yeah.
so I started practicing about a week later, and I played in games a week after that, so I started playing about 14 days later, this time
Wow.
with a face mask. I wasn't wearing a face mask before, so I kind of went back to play quickly when now looking back on it is obviously not the route I should have taken,
Yeah.
but we didn't know any differently.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, exactly, you didn't know any differently, and your desire was to go back out and do it, and I would think
Yeah.
that, a lot of and your story is probably based on getting back out there and having to face that feeling, being back on the mound of having that happen to you and being very conscious about all of it too. I think it also interestingly, your sport has been your pain, but it's also been your success. And it's so crazy when I think about sports and how they relate to our life and how it's all interwoven in the lessons that they learn. But this is a huge lesson for you because what happened after that was interesting that you started experiencing PTSD from that accident. And along with that, you tell me that you had, numerous different things spawned off of that. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what happened and how soon that all kind of presented for you.
Yeah, of course. So PTSD was my kind of first experience with a mental illness, mental health issue, and I really didn't know what it was. And
Mhm.
so about 6 months later, I started to develop these symptoms where I would have flashbacks of my accident when I was asleep, when I was awake. Um, that whole thing was
Mhm.
that was hard. It was because it
Yeah,
wasn't even happening on the mound, but then when I'd get on the mound, my heart rate would elevate faster than usual. I
yeah,
would become way more anxious, palms would become sweaty, and I would go into panic attacks. And
yeah.
the issue was with not knowing what I was going through and my coaches not knowing what I was going through was that they thought I was fine. They thought mentally like it was just something that I had to get over. And
Oh,
so in
yeah.
those moments, I felt so alone. And this happened for me for 2 to 3 years.
Oh my
Um,
god.
Going into college, I developed the yips overhand and underhand. So
Wow. Oh gosh.
for that last summer going into college, I did not play well at
Yeah,
all in any
yeah,
capacity, and it was debilitating. So, and COVID was truly a blessing because it allowed me to not play. I took
yeah.
it away, and that was
Mhm,
outstanding.
mhm.
I didn't realize what I was going through until I came to college.
Mm,
I had a coach. I the coach knew my story.
mhm.
She knew what had happened to me, and she suggested, "Hey, let's go see our sports psych." And I was like, "Okay, if it's going to make me better, yeah, let's do it."
Yeah.
And after kind of talking to my sports psych, I learned not only was I dealing with severe PTSD, but I had general anxiety disorder that was truly debilitating.
Yeah.
And then over time, over that next year, I developed numerous eating disorders as
Mhm.
well as depression. And then that led to some suicidal ideation.
Mm,
No, I didn't know what was happening to me. And I think that was what was so scary about it all.
mhm. Yeah, and you were young,
Yeah,
you know? And I would think at the age of 14, 15, all this happening to you and you keeping it under wraps and people saying, "It's okay. Yeah, you're gonna be okay. It's fine. It's just something you're going through," is, I mean, and, like, I'm not saying that they did the wrong thing. They did what they knew to do.
exactly.
But unfortunately, the awareness wasn't there to know that there was something else going on. So I can't imagine that isolation that you lived in for those years before you went to college and how you had to be a very, very high functioning individual to get to a point where you could still play in college and that you were being sought after.
Yeah, that's a little bit of an understatement. I no,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I committed to USD when I think I was 16 years old, and I was kind of still like it wasn't completely debilitating. Um,
Okay.
and when I was 17, our the head coach that recruited me left. And
Oh,
so for
wow.
that entire summer, we didn't have a coach. And then a new coach came in, never really saw me pitch. This was a year before I was going in. That year after, right when COVID hit, she left.
Oh my
And
god.
so we have the coach that I have now, who's honestly it's the greatest blessing. And um, however, during that summer or those 2 summers when I was playing horribly, there weren't any coaches there to watch how I was doing. And so I
Yeah.
was extremely fortunate to be able to kind of like fly under the radar and
Mhm.
kind of work through what I was working through without any sort of negative or just attention in general, which
Right.
was like negative or positive attention, which was very I kind of attribute some of my success to that.
Well, yeah, I guess so. But then also, and before we hit the record, we talked a little bit about the recruiting process. It's hard.
Yeah.
Recruiting process is so hard, and there's so many ups and downs. And so if I, both of my girls are committed to play, and one is playing, and I know that intimately, being beside somebody that is trying to do that, the ups and downs. And then I think about your process on top of that, and what you were dealing with privately so, yeah, high functioning me I mean, we laugh about it now because
I
but
know.
it's comical because I feel like there's so many people that would fall into that vein because
Yeah.
it's not something that is I guess maybe it's getting more prioritized and more, applicable to talk about, but man, like, you were still in a place where it wasn't spoken about. It wasn't even understood.
Which is funny because that was only a few years ago. Like, that's what's so shocking to me about this entire conversation about mental health too, is how quickly everything changed and how much awareness is being brought to it, which is incredible.
Yeah.
But just even 6, 7 years ago, I had never felt more alone and isolated because I didn't know what was going on, and neither did anyone around me.
Yeah. How did your parents help you with any of that? I mean, as a parent, I feel like they would know you, obviously, very intimately and want to be helping you, but not, again, feel very helpless.
Yeah, they were as supportive as they possibly could be. They
Mhm,
were there for me as much as they could, helping me try to get through it. They we attempted to see a psychologist and she wasn't a match for me, and
mhm.
so we kind of just started looking around and they helped throughout that entire process. I just don't even think that they knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Like I was such a high functioning individual. I had straight A's. I
Oh, wow.
was an overachiever in everything, a perfectionist in everything that I was doing. So on
Mhm.
the outside, it honestly could have appeared that nothing was wrong.
Yeah.
Or if something was wrong, it was minor. It wasn't as bad. Like it wasn't on the outside seen as bad as it actually was internally,
Yeah.
which is, I feel like they didn't know how bad it actually was.
Yeah. When do you believe that they became aware that this was really a debilitating issue for you? Was it before you went to college or after you
No,
went?
when I went to college.
Okay.
Um, I being on my own for the first time, I was able this is a really bad coping mechanism, but I was able to isolate a lot more than I had in the past. And
Yeah.
I was doing that a little bit more regularly. And they were kind of seeing how badly I was struggling in all aspects. And you could see physically, like my sophomore year when I was dealing with my eating disorder, you could see physically that I was malnourished.
Yeah.
And so I like going back home, family members made comments. And so
Mm.
they could see that something was wrong.
Mhm.
And I was able to kind of start opening up to them a little bit more as things went on. And now we're pretty transparent about everything. Uh,
Yes.
but after college is when I took that shift.
Yeah. Golly. And then how far were you away from your family during that time? Like, how far is that distance from your hometown to where you are in college? Like,
It's
is
like
it
a 3-hour flight.
okay. Ah, that's a ways.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
it is, but it's an okay 3-hour flight. It's
Yeah.
not as far as it could be.
But the thing I think, and you just said about the coping mechanism, the isolation was kind of the deal for you. I think if I look at that for what it was and where you were, it was probably a survival mechanism for you as well. 'Cause,
100%.
like, I think, even with my treatment of my eating disorder, I think one of the things that I learned through my therapy was that it was a mechanism to get me to where I'm at. I don't like the person that I was when I was in the middle of it. I don't want to go back and revisit that and redo it at any time. However, it was something that was, um, it was a catalyst to get me, and it saved me from the things that it was protecting me from until I was ready to address them.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I remember when I was dealing with it, it was a mechanism of control.
Yeah.
It was some of the only things I could control. I couldn't control it felt like I couldn't control how I was feeling, but the one thing I could control was how I coped and that
Mm,
like what I ate or what I didn't eat. And
right.
so that was a huge sense of like that was something I've had to work through a lot is that sense of control.
Yeah.
That's also not talked about at all.
Exactly. How is that collegiately? Because I think that, pushing through the pain, that was something that you spoke about, and with both of my daughters too, it's like they have both talked about in different forums, like, I can't tell my coach what's going on, or I don't need to, or I don't know how much I should push with this injury that I think I have, or talking to somebody because I don't wanna lose this spot, or have a spotlight put on me for any reason. Do you think that there's any any positive movement in that being something that is growing into it's okay to talk to your coach about? Or do you think it's just a case by case maybe?
Truly, I right now, I think we're in the middle of it.
Yeah.
I think it's case by case, because the one thing that I've known as an athlete is just growing up, what we're taught is mental toughness is pushing through pain.
Mhm.
Mental toughness and mental health are totally separate,
Yeah.
different things, and we're not able to make that distinction. And so, as athletes, if we want to play, if we want to be the best, we're going to do anything we can to get there. And I don't
Mhm. Yeah.
care if I'm hurting mentally or physically, I'm going to get through it. And my coach can't know because then she's not going to play me
Yeah.
and then I can't succeed. And so I think it's this kind of cycle we put ourselves in. I was extremely fortunate with the coaches that I've had in college. They've been my lifeline. I mean, it started with my pitching coach at the time. She was very vulnerable with me, and we were able to talk about hard things.
Yeah.
And she kind of helped me talk to my head coach about them. And over my 4 years here, the relationship I have with my coach is huge.
That's
I
great.
meet with her almost weekly about things going on in my life or things that I'm struggling with. And I have a team now of people who are making sure my success is physical, it's mental, it's trying to
Mm.
get me back to
Mm.
where they know I can be, which has been huge, but I truly believe it's a case by case basis because
Yeah.
not all coaches are like this.
Yeah.
Not all coaches care about their players in the way that ours do.
Right.
Sometimes they care a little bit more about winning, which I understand.
Right.
It's what we're taught. Um, but no, I've been very fortunate for
Well,
sure.
and I think I love what you said, that mental health and toughness are 2 completely different things. And I think that bears some food for thought, if you will. Like, I think that I think that would be a really, really good that'd be a really great conversation for coaches to have with other coaches and what that, how that applies to their team and even with their team and have them really analyze what that means for them personally. Then you get just a little bit different, you know, may get a little bit different performance out of your team. But that's just me speaking about that.
No, I agree with that one 100%. I've noticed when you have players who are mentally healthy and mentally just wanting to fight for each other and are
Yeah.
physically healthy, like, you're gonna succeed far more than a team who's gonna be run down and who doesn't think they can prioritize their mental health. A lot of our games that we play, any sport is more mental than it is physical.
Amen. Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
as we should be taking care of our mental health almost as much as we should be taking care of it more than we are our physical health if that's the case.
Yeah. For
So,
sure.
it's something that needs to be shifted for sure.
Yeah. And I do agree. I think as you've talked about it a little bit more and as I think about it, yeah, I think you're right. We kind of are in the middle of that, kind of in the crux of that shift. And it's interesting, I think, as it continues to unfold, especially with yeah, with athletes like yourself being able to step forward and be transparent about your experience and what you have gone through. I think that's the real shift over the mountain, if you will, that will kind of help other people come forward and people say, "Oh, okay, there is something to this. This is reality and this is something that we really have to address." Yeah. Tell
Yeah.
me tell me a little bit about that process of healing for you. So when you went to college and you started seeing the psychologist there, how did all of that start to unfold for you? Where you obviously knew that there was some stuff that you needed to unload and stuff that was happening. Did you feel comfortable right away? Did it take a bit of time for you to kind of get to that point where you were like, I'm ready to dive a little deeper? Or what was that process for you?
Yeah, so it started out with me going to see that sports psych and talking about softball.
Okay.
That's how it started and my PTSD, and we kind of got into the depths of how I was anxious and I had
Mhm.
performance anxiety, and on top of that, social anxiety, and
Mhm.
so my sports psych was the one that originally referred me to get medication for my anxiety, which was a game changer for sure.
Mhm.
But over that next year, I kept seeing my sports psych, but we didn't really talk about some other in-depth problems. We kinda kept it softball related.
Yeah.
But over the next year, my mental health continued to decline. I think my eating disorder kind of kicked in. That was kind of the height of it.
Yeah.
Because of that, I was severely depressed,
Mhm.
couldn't get up out of bed. Because I was malnourished, I tore a ligament in my arm that stopped me from pitching. So on top of all of it, I lost my only outlet. And on top of that, it just everything weighed on me. And
Yeah.
I felt like I was letting everyone down and that I wasn't good enough to be here or that I was making other people in my life more miserable. And that was a
Mhm.
very low point for me.
Mhm.
And there was a presentation for athletes in November of my sophomore year, so about 2 years ago, where it was Tyler Helinski's story and his family speaking and how he died by suicide and how they didn't know. And
Yeah.
after that, I had felt so alone, and I had a really big breakdown, and that breakdown, was my rock bottom. I
Yeah.
told my friends and coaches that I didn't wanna be here anymore,
Yeah.
and they allowed me to take time from softball and didn't take their eyes off me. But at that rock bottom was when I was referred to the therapist that I have now.
Okay.
And so over that time, we kind of got a little bit I was very hesitant to talk, so
Yeah.
it wasn't just pouring my heart out right at the beginning. It started with just a little bit of conversation, or
Right.
how are you feeling here? And I would never show emotion with therapy, and only in the past year have I started to show emotion. But
Mhm.
um, I had realized over that time with all my other mental health issues that talking about PTSD was easy now.
Yeah.
I wanted other people to know how I felt, and I wanted other people to know about PTSD in athletics because the only time I've ever heard about PTSD is when we hear it in veterans.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So I didn't know that I could have it.
Yeah.
And when I was finally able to at least like share that my story via social media for that first time, strictly only about PTSD, the response I had was overwhelming.
Yeah.
It was overwhelmingly positive with people just being like, random people being like, "I have PTSD," and you described what I was feeling perfectly. Like, I didn't
Oh,
know how to describe it, and that was it. And
oh,
so that was the start, truly the start of my healing process,
mhm,
was being able to kinda talk about it and share it and to make other people feel less alone, and in that
mhm.
process, I felt less alone.
Yeah. Isn't that
And
interesting?
so that's
Mhm,
kind of where my healing process has been, and it's
mhm,
honestly, advocacy has been my healing process,
mhm. Yeah,
making sure other people didn't feel the way that I felt,
yeah,
making sure people knew about these things that I didn't know about,
right.
was it's I think that's been really the key to my healing process along with side therapy, but in the support system for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that whole the cathartic, healing that comes along with being able to share and give your stuff a voice.
Yeah.
Like, you gave it a voice, and you allowed it to come out, and you allowed others to see that side of you. I mean, that transparency I've talked about a little bit ago, it's invaluable, and it's something that's really, really challenging. So I'm just gonna say, okay, like, bravo for you for doing that
Thank
because it's
you.
yeah, I know that's not easy, and I know that making that first step was hard to do, but I love that you're a champion for other people in the way that you don't want them to get to that point where you were. You don't want them to feel like they're by themselves. So my hope, is that people are hearing this that can connect in that same way for you again, and to be able to continue to tell that story of that healing to continue to heal you for sure. Now, you talk a lot about your support now, like your team, your coaches. Tell me a little bit more about what's going on with you currently as you're broaching your senior season, right? And you're getting ready to come back out and pitch again next spring.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about how all of that has transpired over the course of the last year, because I know you said you were out with an injury last season. Tell me a little bit about how that fed into the healing process. Was that a positive for you at that time?
Honestly, yeah, I didn't think it would be.
Mhm,
I think when it happened, I was just kind of like, "This is a setback. This is not gonna make things better." So what happened, well, for a while, we didn't know what happened.
mhm.
I all of a sudden got super dizzy and experienced extreme dizziness and nausea
Mm.
and couldn't exercise without throwing up, and
Oh,
this
wow.
happened for about a year without anything being diagnosed after a bunch of tests and everything, and only it was only until early last or late last spring was when I like, my physical therapist kind of was playing around with my neck, and we kind of realized that, I had an instability in my neck that was causing all of these neurological symptoms to happen, which was insane, and the whole process was horrible. I wish I would never have to like, I don't wish that on anyone. I was sick for the better half of a year. School was miserable. I would show up to half my classes.
Mm.
It was a really rough spot for me
Mhm.
physically, something that I
Mhm.
hadn't experienced necessarily before, and obviously couldn't pitch, and so,
Mhm.
until September, I hadn't pitched in a year and a half.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I just started pitching again in September,
Mhm.
which the whole process has been great, but during that time, it allowed me stepping away from softball made me realize how much I loved it and how much I missed it and how
Yeah.
grateful I was for it and how much that I took it for granted. I took
Mm.
this perfectionist based, and I this whole process has, I feel like, allowed me to heal my mental game. It has allowed me to
Yes.
strengthen my mental game and understand why we do certain things when we do, gain my softball IQ, learn how to pitch call, learn how to do things that are gonna benefit me mentally.
Yeah.
This past summer, tagging on to that healing process, I went through trauma therapy
Okay.
to kind of fully break down what was going on in my head and to kind of develop the good coping mechanisms and the good things to kind of catch yourself when I'm in these bad spots, because what was hard with PTSD is I'm standing out there on the mound constantly thinking that I'm going to die. That
Uh,
was an active thought going through my head that I couldn't control, and
mm.
I'm grateful now that I can control it. After
Mhm.
going through trauma therapy, it was hard. It was very
Yeah.
hard to get down to the root causes of these feelings and thoughts and to work through it, but that year off was the most healing for the mental side of my game, and
Mhm.
coming back this year has been truly amazing. I got to essentially start over,
Yeah.
build a new base, reinvent myself. Um, but it wasn't starting over mentally. It was building on what I had learned.
Right, right.
So just in small pieces, when I've gotten to pitch live for the first time, it's been amazing. I've been successful because my mental side is so strong now.
Yes.
And physically, I didn't lose anything. I
Right,
obviously didn't pitch for a long time, but I still have the same skill. And I think
right.
that was the hardest part coming back is I thought I would never have it.
Yeah, yeah, I would think that that would
Yeah,
be my first thing to think is, "Oh my gosh, it's been a year and a half. How is she physically like, how much is that gonna take to get her back into her sport and into her position?" But
yeah,
how interesting that, like and you said it earlier, like, addressing the mental is just as important as the physical, and maybe in some instances even more so. And so this is an instance, I would say, because the physicality didn't go away.
no. It took a time to come back, but it didn't go away.
Yeah,
It wasn't as hard as I thought it was gonna be to come back physically. I'd been working through PT and with my athletic trainer trying to get back my strength
yeah,
over about from March on, trying to gain, endurance and everything, and we were able to come through a process to where physically I'm fine, or I'm not fine, but physically I'm in a great place
great
now.
place. That's it.
Like, I'm still going through things, but that we're so much easier to manage what I'm going through, and we have plans for when things go bad because
Yeah,
I still get sick, I still
yeah,
can't run, but I can manage it now.
yeah,
And, like, the mental side of the game was the stuff that has been a game changer, and my
mhm,
appreciation for the game and the love for the game and not being outcome based anymore. This sounds
mm.
horrible, but I don't care how I do. I'm just out there. I'm
I
just
love
excited
that
to get to
though.
pitch again. It's been
Well,
freeing.
that's amazing that you've gotten to that point, because I think when you can release that expectation, then you can really actually flow with your sport.
Yeah,
And then you can really be present. I know you said something about that, about working with your coaches to be present and confident. Like those are 2 very, very powerful things for you in terms of your healing and in terms of understanding about yourself and what that can do for your performance ultimately. Yeah, and
yeah,
I think that all of us can benefit from that in everything that we do in life, but especially as an athlete, staying present and having the confidence that you have the ability to manage the symptoms if you have something going on, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, all the things. Another thing that you said in that interview with Nick was the false alarms in our brains. And I loved that phrase because we all have false alarms in our brains. So for you, it's your story and it's through your PTSD and all of the things that spawned off of that for you. What are some of the things when you get that false alarm in your brain? You talked about the different coping skills that are healthy after you've gone through the trauma therapy. What are some of the things that you catch yourself having to do?
yeah. So the first thing is I kind of catch those false alarms. Those false alarms come off as thoughts or just kind of some sense of arousal in terms of like accelerated heart rate, or
Mm,
I'm noticing that I'm super anxious and I'm not sure why. And in the past, I've attributed that anxiety to, oh, you're not going to do well, or oh,
mm,
you're going to plate this pitch and they're going to hit it back at you and this is going to happen again. And it became like a rabbit hole. So
mm.
I've noticed when I kind of unhook those thoughts.
Okay.
There's a process in therapy that I've been going through, and it's called unhooking the thoughts. And what I visualize those thoughts kind of flying away.
Oh, I love that.
It's really weird to think about. Like I picture them just kind of going out of my brain.
Yeah.
And then I use the grounding techniques that I've learned.
Mhm.
I love the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method of
Okay.
5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 you can touch, 2 you can smell, 1 you can taste. I
Yeah.
love that one because
Yeah.
it brings me back to, like, what I like to call a neutral mindset.
Yes.
That's something I think what's also huge, and one thing that I've developed over this course of time is the ability to not let my emotions take over. The
Oh,
ability to
good.
think about the task at hand and be
Mhm.
like, "Hey, like, let's focus on what this is now."
Right.
Because the one thing I've learned, and there's a family friend of my dad's growing up, his name's Trevor Moad. He was Russell Wilson's mental coach.
Okay.
And he kind of invented this idea of thinking neutrally, and he says that negativity works 100% of the time.
Wow. He's not wrong.
He's not wrong. So when I got caught and when I started thinking these negative things, it was debilitating. Of
Yeah.
course it was debilitating because I was telling myself I was gonna die.
Yeah.
And sometimes when those situations arise, you can't think positively, and
Yeah.
that's okay. It's this overwhelming sense of needing to be positive all the time. I'm sorry, but I think it's crap. You don't need to.
I agree. I agree. It's about getting to the bottom of where you are. And I read something the other day that positive people aren't necessarily always positive about things going on. They are just non-reactive and
Mhm.
have learned how to manage the negativity that comes up.
They're neutral. They
Neutral.
they're neutral. They think
Boom.
of thi exactly. They think of things that are they think of the task at hand. They think of what's happening and what I need to do to be successful, and that's what's helped is when I have these thoughts, I'm like, "Okay, let's take the emotion out of it.
Yeah.
What do I need to do right now to stop me from thinking this way?
Yes.
What do I need to do to shift my mindset to be successful right here in this moment?" And
Right.
that has been the most relieving thing is this ability to be like, I don't need to be negative, but I don't need to be positive either.
Yeah, you've let yourself off the hook.
Exactly. There's
Yeah.
no expectations.
Yes.
But I think that when those like coping mechanisms and that training has been so big for me and being able to
Yeah.
reframe those negative thoughts into a statement that I can handle and
Yes.
believe in and trust in has been huge.
I love if there's a mic drop moment in this talk that we're having, it's that. It's like, I don't have to be negative. I don't have to be positive. I just have to be neutral. I have to be present. Dude,
Exactly.
that's so big. That's so big. Right there is a huge piece for, I think, probably anybody, whether you're an athlete or a mom struggling or a dad struggling or and it doesn't matter. Wow. That's great. That's really great. How are you with that successfully? If we could say on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, ah, I'm I don't do it well, 10 being I'm a master at it. Where do you think you fall right now?
Probably around like a 65 to 70. I
Okay.
majority of the time I do catch myself.
Yeah.
There are some times, like with softball, we're gonna probably say 80. Like,
Okay.
I'm able to very much confidently able to, like, imply this into everyday practice with
Mhm.
softball. When it comes to my life, we're gonna call that about a 50.
Okay.
We're still working through things.
Yeah.
It's been a great tool, like, translating I think this is what the thing is, like, I've learned from softball, it's kinda translated into my life. It's obviously a little bit harder to implement
Mhm.
in my life, especially,
Mhm.
like, with school, with
Yeah.
I wanna be a doctor, and I'm studying to take my MCATs, and so
Oh,
that's been hard to kinda translate, but the whole
yes.
practice is it's gonna get there,
Yeah.
and I know it's gonna help me be successful wherever I go throughout my life.
Yes.
It's
That's
pivotal.
that
Yep.
parallel of sports to the life, and like, I just don't believe there's any accidents in terms of how our life is directed and the situations that we go through. I love that you wanna be a doctor. I think you're gonna make a fabulous one, and
Thank
you're
you.
gonna educate so many people on so many things. You're gonna do big things. I totally, totally believe that. And just by being very formidable and being very transparent about this process, that's so big. That's so big. Because,
Thank you.
like, if I look back, what you were talking about, sophomore year was for you was just mind-boggling, right? And the fact that you made it through and you're intact and you're here now. And that junior year was such a piece of healing for you and learning how to do that work. And now you're like, okay, I may not be all the way there, but I got the stuff that I need to do. It makes your story so relatable, I think, to other people. If they can go, all right, these are the pieces. You can do this. Yeah. Did you ever feel at your lowest point that there was still a piece of hope?
No. That was what was very hard about it. When I was at my lowest, I felt no hope. I didn't
Mhm.
see a future for myself. I didn't see what I had thought for myself. Um, and I was very fortunate to have a few very close friends that saw the hope in me
Yeah.
when I didn't.
Yeah.
I was talking about this with someone recently where I don't think I'll ever be able to repay the few individuals who did save my life because they saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself.
Oh,
And it was there one of them or a few of them are still my teammates, and I like being able to play with them. I play for them. I don't play with them anymore. They're kind of what keep me going through all of this. And it's been really amazing
mhm.
because I've been able to shift from that to be able to be that for other people.
Yeah.
And I don't like I said, I don't think I can ever repay them. They mean everything to me, and I know they know that.
Yeah.
But no, I wouldn't be there without them because I had no hope.
Mhm.
I was done.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
What a beautiful testament to your friendship. And that brought me to tears. That's so special. And those are the people that you're gonna have at your wedding one day and
Yeah.
at the birth of your kids and all of those things. Like, all of that stuff. Those are meaningful friendships. Those are so good. Oh, hold on to those. It's so good.
I'm never letting go of them.
No, don't ever do that. Don't ever do that. No. What do you think would be your biggest blessing? Maybe that, but
They
maybe there's a handful of other things.
Yeah, I'd say this everything that has happened to me is truly my biggest blessing.
Ah,
In the moment, it obviously wasn't, but
yeah,
now I'm where I'm at now, I get to reflect on where I started and
yeah.
how I've grown into an individual who was once too afraid to talk in groups of people to someone who's able to talk about their feelings openly. And that
Ah,
is
love
in
that.
just a few short years has been just like an incredible growth. And um, I definitely wouldn't be as empathetic. I wouldn't be as caring without going what I've gone through. And
Mhm.
I think it's everything that's happened. And I hated when people said this growing up, but everything has happened for a reason.
I know.
I
I
hate
know.
that statement.
I know. I'm like, "We need to stop."
I'm like, stop, please, not right now.
Yeah, this is the wrong time to say that right now, yeah. But it's yeah, it's true. It's
It
true.
is, and
Yeah.
when I'm in the suck of it and when I'm in the heart of it, I
Mhm.
can't usually see that, but I
Yeah.
be like, when I'm out of the suck is when I'm able to kind of reflect and see how great it was. I had a that one pitching coach that I had at the beginning told me it's wonderful to be a deep feeling person
Yeah.
because those who experience such deep lows are capable of experiencing much higher highs.
I love it. Yeah. The lows oh my god. I did God, drop the mic. Oh my
Right?
gosh, I love it. I
She
love it.
the way she was able to talk to me about that, and especially I was 18 when she told me that, and
Yeah.
didn't understand what that meant, and now I'm understanding of, yeah, I feel lows, but in those lows, now I have hope
Yeah.
because I know the highs that I can experience if I just keep going.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that has been truly amazing too.
At the ripe age of are you 21 now?
I'm 21 now.
At the ripe age of 21, for you to realize that is really, really big, and for you to be able to, explain that in a way that other people can receive, I think that's a huge gift that you bring to the community, and I feel like, with that and my husband used to say this all the time, with wisdom comes sadness, but on the other hand, with wisdom comes also a choice, you know? To be transparent and to be open and to be vulnerable and to be sharing and very honest about where you are and what that looks like and where you've been so that other people can not feel alone. Yeah. And
Exactly.
not feel like they're by themselves, dealing with all that by themselves. I just, and excuse me for just going back because I just think about you as being a 16, 17-year-old in the middle of that. And I just want to like hug you and say, oh my goodness, that's such a hard time in a teenage girl's life anyway, you know? and then you put all of that on top of it that you and your parents didn't know was really happening.
No.
So,
Yeah.
I'm really proud of you, and
Thank
I'm
you.
really, really happy that you've done the work that you've done. It's amazing, and it's, in a short period of time too, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's incredible how short of a time it's all been, but how
Mhm.
much substantial growth has come from it.
Mhm. Absolutely. So let's talk about growth as a senior
Yeah.
in your sport. What are we looking forward to this season?
I'm looking forward to getting to play with some of the people who I cherish so greatly. I'm excited to feel the joy I get from playing.
Mhm.
I'm very excited to be able to fight with my team. I have a really weird, I'm gonna say weird energy when I play.
Okay.
I'm overly in ways I'm overly confident.
Perfect.
I'm just very competitive. Um,
Yes.
I've loved being competitive again.
Okay.
But even some of these, like, so one of the people who saved my life, her name is Shorty, and she
Okay.
yeah.
I love
She's
it.
she's our shortstop, and
Okay.
we've grown together, like, same grade, same everything.
Yeah.
I got to face her about 2 weeks ago pitching, and this is the first time I was facing her, and I wanted to beat her so badly, but she wanted to beat me that much more, and it was
Yes.
that competition that I loved, and
Ugh.
she won, but it's fine. It's
It's okay.
next time I'm meeting her,
Yeah.
but
I'll look past it this time,
we're
but,
gonna look
just
past it.
be prepared for next time.
Exactly, exactly. But it's just the competition. It's the now I get to look at her at shortstop, and we do a breath together before every inning to kind of center ourselves and to kind of get our minds on the right page. And we're so in sync when it comes to that. And we just want so much success for each other.
Yeah.
It's like incredible. And there's a few other teammates that are the same way.
I love
And so
it.
I'm excited to experience everything with them again.
Yeah,
In a while.
that's such a huge team aspect and a huge bond that you guys are creating.
Yeah.
So, I can't wait to hear how you do this next season. I think it's
Me
gonna be
too.
amazing.
I'm hoping so. I'm really
Yeah.
hoping so.
Yeah, and physically, how are things with you now? Getting
Physically,
better?
we're getting better. We're getting
Okay.
close. I was able to pitch live for the first time in 2 years about 3 weeks ago. So it's gonna take a little bit through the start of season to kinda get ramped up to where I need to
Yeah.
be physically.
Yeah.
I'm just excited for the opportunity to get to do it again.
Oh, I just every time you talk about it, I get chills. It's really you're doing it for the right reasons,
Yeah.
you know?
Now I
And
am. I know I
yes.
wasn't when I first started, and I think that's another blessing is I'm doing it for the right reasons now, and I'm doing it because I love it.
Yeah. When did you make that realization? When did that click for you, do you think?
When I pitched live for the first time about a month ago. When I
Oh,
was playing, I was anxious going into it, like, "Oh, like, what's gonna happen?" And I did pretty well, and
mhm.
I cried. I struck my first batter out, the first person I faced, and I was on that mound, and I cried happy tears, and I
Oh,
got to hug my coach, hug my teammates because I only got to face 3 batters that day, and it was 2 years of pain and suffering finally was in my head worth it. I succeeded. I had reached this goal to play again because I never thought it would be possible. And so that's when I realized that every I realized this for a long time after is every second I get to play out there is a blessing because
yeah,
I'm truly living. I talked to my therapist about this and we made the realization that I'm living on borrowed time. I'm pitching on borrowed time. I shouldn't be where I am.
yeah,
To take those moments in and realize how grateful I am to just be playing
right.
and to just be out there, and truthfully, I mean, obviously, I wanna succeed, but if all I do is get out there this season, that's all I care about.
You're succeeding.
I'm succeeding, I'm winning.
You are winning. Yeah.
Exactly.
Even if the score isn't reflective of it,
Yep.
yeah, in a game of failure. Sports
Mm,
is a game of failure. You're playing those odds. But fundamentally, at the core of you,
mhm.
you are winning.
Yeah.
Gosh, can we get just an amen? Can I get like a hallelujah?
I
Amazing.
agree so much.
Amazing, amazing. Oh gosh. I am so, so, so glad that you were open to sharing your full story with me and having
Oh,
this really, really deep conversation because it's hard to go to those places. I know. I know. And I appreciate that openness on your part, especially as a 21-year-old. That's hard. But I commend you for what you're doing. And I'm excited to follow your career. And I'm excited to follow you on social media and see all the wonderful things you're going to do. And I will be rooting for you in med school
Thank you so
all
much.
day long. All day long. You're going to be super successful. I know you are. But
Thank
before
you.
we wrap up, though, I
Yep.
do want to I know Nick did this with the impact sport, so I'm going to throw this at you. I love doing the rapid fire questions too, just to learn a little bit more about you
Yeah, of
personally.
course.
Okay. Are you ready? I got about 4 or 5 of them for you.
I'm ready.
Okay. Number 1, what is your favorite type of weather and why?
Rain. I find it so peaceful.
Okay. My younger daughter's the same way. I was like, "Oh, it sucks. It's raining today." She goes, "I kinda like it."
I love the rain.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the rain when you don't have it all the time.
Oh, true, true. Where you are, San Diego is not it's yeah, you don't
It's
experience
sunny
rain
all the
every
time.
day.
Yeah, and it's raining right now, and I'm so happy.
Oh, I love it. It just shows that you talk about the lows and the highs, so you can
Yeah.
experience all the places.
Yep.
Okay, okay. Number 2, this is fun, right? Who is your favorite Disney character?
Ariel from The Little Mermaid. It's been my favorite since I was, like, a little kid.
Oh, I love it. It's timeless.
It is.
Oh, was that your favorite movie as well? The Little
Yeah,
Mermaid?
except for my parents would cut the ending because, like, the scary part because I was terrified as a little kid.
Yeah.
So I didn't know about the ending for a little bit, but still favorite movie.
Oh, Ariel, I love her, love her. All right, number 3, on a scale of 1 to 10, how messy is your dorm or your apartment where you live?
Probably about a 5 right now. It's
Okay.
not it's not like, we just came back from Thanksgiving break, so it's I haven't unpacked yet,
Okay.
but it's okay.
So things are still stuffed in your suitcase.
Yep.
When do you go back? Are you're just there for a couple of weeks and then you do finals and then you go back for
Yeah,
Christmas to
yeah.
home?
Yep.
Oh, okay. And then number 4, if you could snap your fingers and be playing any other sport in college, what would you choose to play?
I wish I could play soccer. I played in high school, and
Okay.
I forget how much I miss it.
Gosh, do you know I was my youngest daughter's soccer coach at like age 3 with a field of like other 3 and 4-year-olds. I knew nothing about soccer other than just like kick the ball
Just
in that
chaos.
net thing over there. It was terrible. I knew nothing about it, but I love watching it. It's
I love
it's
soccer.
oh, it's athletic, it's aggressive, it's
Yeah,
ah,
it's
let's
so fun.
go.
I miss it so much.
You should do like an intramural. Well, you can't with your sport, I was gonna say.
Someday I will.
Yeah, one day you get back to that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, and number 5, what's the best piece of advice that you have ever received?
That you can still be afraid and do it anyway.
Oh, I love it. Who'd that come from?
That came from one of my other coaches. I was sharing my story and with her, and she goes, "The courage to be afraid and do something anyway is huge, and
Yeah.
all it takes is 30 seconds of courage."
Oh, I just got another chill. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. It's right.
Yeah,
I think there's so much perspective in your words and the different things that you spoke about today. It's very, ah, refreshing, right?
yeah.
It makes it feel very doable and very possible. And I think that's why you're such a relatable individual as well as sharing all the things that you have so intimately shared today with me. So thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for letting me have this conversation and providing me the platform to have this conversation. It's huge.
Oh, any day. Any day, any day. Let's talk again. I wanna hear
Gladly.
Yeah, I wanna hear after your season's done. We're gonna revisit next spring. I wanna hear
Perfect.
how it all went and kinda just we're gonna do a you think I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. I'm not
Oh, I know you're not, and I love it.
I'm totally not kidding. I wanna know all about it, and I wanna know where you're at with med school and everything that's going on with that, so
Perfect. Sounds
oh, but
amazing.
I'll be following you and stalking you on social media, as should everybody else, and all of the wonderful things that you had to say, the mental health advocacy, the platform that you are now coming from with everything that you've gone through. It's brilliant and it's needed and you are worthy and you are valuable and you bring so much to this world. So thank you for being you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you more than you know.
Oh, mwah. You're welcome. I hope you have a great rainy day in San Diego.
Thank you.
Okay, until next spring.
Until next spring.
Bye, girl.